Welcome back, Leominsterites. It is the September episode of Representing Leominster. I'm your state representative, Natalie Higgins, and I am beyond thrilled to be joined by our Congressman, Jim McGovern, who is a regular on our show. And Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to join and share a little bit of what you've been up to.
I'm happy to be with you.
I don't know how you spend as much time in Leominster as you do, because you have a very big district that spans probably far bigger than anyone realizes, from Leominster all the way down to South Worcester County, out to Northampton and past that. And you've been kind of touring, doing your annual farm tour, which brings you all across your district and up to Leominster to see Go Farm. How was this year's farm tour, and what were you hoping to get out of it this year?
Well, as you know, I'm on the Agriculture Committee, and I come from Worcester. I didn't grow up on a farm, so I'm trying to learn as much about farms as I possibly can, so I can be an advocate for farms here in central Massachusetts. And so I do this every year, and we did 11 farms this year, and one of them was Go Farm, which is an incredible place. I mean, one is I've always, you know, my sisters go there all the time. My sister lives in Sterling. She goes there all the time to get her fruits and vegetables. But you know, I don't think I appreciated all that goes on until we went there and visited. Everything that they sell at that farm is grown by them. So there's nothing that's brought in from anywhere else. It's all kind of local, truly local food. And they're an important part of the local economy here. But they represent a theme that we were trying to reinforce, so that is that agriculture in general is an important part of the economy here in Massachusetts. People don't always know that. And not only are they an important part of the economy, they're also very generous in terms of what they do to provide, you know, fresh vegetables and produce to, you know, to economically challenged communities. So, you know, the families are a wonderful family. And it was great to be there. But again, I learned an awful lot on this farm tour, including the fact that our farmers are probably the most aggressive and best stewards of our environment, because they know what climate change means. They see it every day.
What I think is incredible about Go Farm, and I am a kid who grew up in Leominster eating their corn, I didn't realize it had been in the family since the 1800s.
Yeah,
so
no,
that is like
I didn't either. Yeah, there's
legacy.
incredible history here, which is unbelievable. And that it stayed in the same family all these years. And we met their son, who's, I think, going to continue that tradition. And it's, and I tell people all the time, look, you know, if given the opportunity, buy local. You support our local farmers. And the more you support them, the more they can grow here, the more they can thrive here, the better quality food do we get, and the better for the environment as well.
And the Govs were one of the farms early that wanted to do the Healthy Incentives Program and make sure folks with SNAP dollars could actually access their fresh local produce. And so for folks who haven't, I talk about the Healthy Incentives Program all the time, but it is a way for you to support our local farms, get fresh local produce into your home. So if you have SNAP benefits and you're not using your Healthy Incentives Program benefits, there's kind of extra dollars that you're leaving on the table every month that can be used at local farmers markets or just farm stands.
You're getting better food, more food, and you're supporting our local farmers. It's a win-win-win for everybody.
And food insecurity is something that we can and should solve, and I'm so grateful to have you leading kind of the effort nationally to make sure that we're tackling this, because this is not something we should be experiencing.
We've got great allies like you at the state level leading the way on this issue as well. Look, we live in the richest country in the history of the world, and we've got 44 million Americans who don't know where the next meal is going to come from. And I think that that's something we all should be ashamed of. Food ought to be viewed as a fundamental human right for everybody in this country. I think everybody on this planet, it should be viewed as a fundamental human right. But you know, during COVID, the federal government stepped up, and you know, we provided some emergency relief to help people get access to food. We increased the SNAP benefit a little bit, again, with some other emergency benefits, and we actually saw hunger start to decrease in this country. And then, you know, the pandemic ended, the emergency benefits dried up, SNAP got reduced by a considerable amount, and now we see hunger on the uptick again. And I want to remind people that the majority of people on SNAP who can work. These are working families. The people who are using the HIP benefit, or who are coming in and buying groceries with SNAP, most of these families are working. So, we got to make sure that they have access to good, nutritious food, and they have enough to put on the table to feed their families. I mean, this is not a radical idea. And by the way, if you skip meals, and you're going without food, you're a less productive worker. If you're a student, you don't learn in school. Now, we're lucky, thanks to you and others in the state legislature and the governor, we have universal free school meals. But kids come to school on Monday. If they're not eating on the weekends, they're not off to a good start on Monday. So we got to fix this problem. And I would just also say that by tolerating food insecurity in this country, it is expensive. Again, kids who don't learn, workers who are not productive, relying on awful food, and therefore getting chronic illnesses that are very costly. I can go on and on and on and on. So, it shouldn't be a radical idea, no matter what your politics may be, to say that nobody in this country ought to be hungry, period.
Yeah, changing topics a little bit. We just honored International Overdose Awareness Day. We know that there are a lot of families who come together to lift up the memories of their loved ones that they've lost. And you just had the opportunity to tour a new peer recovery center that Gamma got started in Leominster. We're just so glad to have them there. And so I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about your experience getting to meet them.
Yeah, I thought it was really inspiring, quite frankly. I'm not sure what I expected during my visit, but I left there really inspired by the incredible people that are working there, by the incredible stories of people who have benefited from their services. It's a great location, but everybody that I talked with there was optimistic and hopeful, and and really dedicated to making sure that nobody falls through the cracks. And as you know, I mean, because you've been dealing with these issues for a long, long time, there are too many of our neighbors who, don't get the help, and sometimes because they don't know the help exists or it's not accessible.
Yeah.
And this is a special place, and I think this community is very fortunate to have it.
I'm really excited about the model. So I've had the opportunity to serve for the last 8 years on the Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery Committee. And so much of this is about granting access and bringing the services into the community so that folks who need it know how to access it right away. The space is beautiful, and it's peer run. So the folks who are using the space are figuring out what kind of programming are there. So if you haven't checked it out, it's called Ripple Effect, and it's on Spruce Street in Leominster. But it's a really beautiful and inviting space, and I'm just so glad that Gamma has a physical presence in Leominster.
And that's really important because, because the physical space really is actually really nice, and because of the incredible people that are working there, people who are looking to get some support can feel comfortable and respected. I think respected is the word that I think is important when we're talking about recovery. Again, these are our neighbors, these are our family members, and we want to make sure that they know that they're loved and that they're supported. And I know that's what I felt when I visited.
Yeah, that's so great. And I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the situation with Neshoba Valley Medical Center. We're filming this on September 3rd, and Stewart Hospital closed in Neshoba Valley over the weekend. And this time last year, we were fighting to save a birthing center. And I could have never imagined that we would be back a year later fighting to save a hospital, emergency department, 600 jobs. And I just want to thank you and the entire federal delegation for everything that you're doing to hold Stewart accountable, but also to keep these hospitals open.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and we're not quite we're not where we want to be right now, but we both are having conversations with entities that we think could maybe provide some support now that Stewart has basically, walked away from Neshoba. But look, those conversations are going to continue. Nobody here is thrown in the towel, but this is not easy. And Stewart was a bad player. Let's be honest. And their greed has cost this community a great deal in terms of healthcare security. And so we got to figure out how to make this right, and we're not going to stop until we figure it out. This is not going as quickly as we would like it to go, but we're not giving up.
The opportunity we have is really to make sure that a new operator comes into that physical space, can reopen the hospital to the greatest extent possible. And what I'm encouraged by is with the whole community standing strong and showing how important this resource is to our whole region. I think that we know that there are a lot of operators taking a second look or continuing to have conversations with the Healy-Driscoll administration about the feasibility of taking on Neshoba Valley Medical Center. I can speak from loved ones and being with loved ones in the Leominster emergency room. Like, there isn't room for folks to be diverted to Leominster Hospital. We already struggle with incredibly long wait times and walkout rates. We need to make sure that this emergency room reopens as quickly as possible.
There has to be a solution to this, and I'm hoping that the Healy-Driscoll administration can continue some of the conversations that they've started. I think now that Stewart is out of the picture, maybe it may be easier to have some of those conversations. But you're right. I mean, this is needed in this community, and there has to be a fix to this, and we got to figure that out.
Yeah, I will say, having been at the essential services hearing and seeing 400 people show up and pack that room and keep that testimony going for hours, it moved everyone, right? And there was a renewed commitment to keeping this facility open. And at a state level, and legislatively, the North Central delegation has been working on a bill that would protect essential services and ultimately hospitals, right? We have these essential services hearings run by the Department of Public Health, and they can reject a closure plan or ask for more safety protocol, but ultimately, they don't get in the way of the eventual closure. And we want to be able to give the Department of Public Health the tools. If a service is essential to a community, maybe it shouldn't close. And we should wait some time, figure out what other tools the hospital needs. Do they need more staff? Do they need help with more funding to keep these essential services? But coming off of the closure of the birthing center, families still need access to a birthing center.
Well, first of all, your leadership has been incredible on this, and I'm confident that the state will not walk away because you won't let them. And I appreciate that. I think the people who live in this area appreciate that as well. But you've also been in touch with my office, and I know Laurie Trahan's office, and with Senator Warren and Senator Markey. And so we are all trying to work with you and others in this delegation to figure out a way forward. And again, I hate the anxiety that this is all created in this community. And it's really sad and hurtful that this is happening, but we can't give up, and we got to figure out, how we can best deal with this.
Yeah, for every day that facility is closed, right? People are being harmed by that, and so I'm really hopeful that we can get a new operator on board and have Neshoba Valley reopened, because so many people rely on it. And I think it's one of the strengths of being a part of the North Central delegation, where when you come at one of us, we all band together to make sure, because it really does impact the whole region. Losing this facility in Ayer has a ripple effect across the entire Central Mass region. And we're realizing how fragile our healthcare system is, even in Massachusetts, where we can be proud that we have some of the best hospitals and the best care. So many people are struggling to access that.
Yeah, if you don't have access to good healthcare, you don't have good healthcare, period. Right? And there are issues with transportation. There are issues, with people, not being able to get to other hospitals that are a much farther distance, and for regular care, for checkups, and for emergencies. Right? So, yeah, this has to be solved somehow. There has to be a remedy to this, again, as we're doing this show, none of us can say so and so is going to come in and buy it or take over or whatever. But what we can assure people is that there are lots and lots of conversations going on at the highest level in state government, and on the federal level, we're doing everything we can to be wind at the governor's back. You know, I know she wants to resolve this. She's sick over what is happening, but this is not her fault. This is a greedy corporate, you know, so-called, you know, healthcare provider that made lots of money and ripped people off and basically destroyed healthcare for a lot of people.
Yeah, never did I think in the Massachusetts legislature we'd have to pass a bill that said hospitals can't sell the land underneath the hospital to an investment group.
Yeah, I mean, but Steward is a, you know, there'll be, you know, the history books will write about, you know, and hold them up as what a bad player looks like. That's no comfort to the people in this community right now, but just they need to know that we are doing everything we can, working with you and the state legislative delegation to try to figure out how we get beyond this moment.
Congressman, are there other issues that you're working on that you want to highlight while we have you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we want to make sure is that the government doesn't shut down. So, you know, we go back to into session, and we have we're hearing that the, you know, former President Trump is telling Republicans to shut the government down unless they insist on new strict rules regarding who can vote. Basically, passing a voter suppression bill. And I just want to say, I think we're at the point where, you know, you know, no matter who's in charge of the White House or of Congress or state legislature or whatever, we have to be about getting our work done. We have to make sure that, you know, people get the services that they are entitled to, that they expect. We have to, you know, I may not get everything I want, you may not get everything you want, but at the end of the day, we got to keep government functioning so that people don't get hurt. And that's where my focus is going to be in the next few weeks, is to make sure that Congress doesn't do something stupid like shut the government down. The least we can do is keep the lights on, and we can fight about the stuff we disagree with, but, you know, clearly we all should agree that, you know, all governmental services shouldn't be shut down.
Yeah. Well, I'm incredibly glad that you're going to be representing us during these next few weeks when those conversations are happening and those decisions are being made. And it's one of the times where I see you, and I often say, I'm so glad you're there, and I'm in the Massachusetts legislature because, you know, despite having a supermajority of Democrats, we still pass almost everything with bipartisan support in Massachusetts, because what I always like to say is, you know, we want the same thing for our community. We want them to be able to thrive. We want them to grow. We want families to be able to support themselves. We might have different ideas on how to get there, and that's where the debate comes in. But that is one of the special things about getting to represent this great state, because we really are focused on the solutions and how, and not just the problems.
And that's one of the things I admire about you and your leadership, is that it is about solutions and not about sound bites. And you're willing to, you help everybody, even people I know who, you know, may not always vote for you, but the bottom line is you're a representative for everybody, and that's what people should want. So well, I'm a huge fan of your.
You gave me that advice in our very first meeting, that like to focus on the solutions. That's one of the things that we get to bring to the table, is actually how to solve the problems folks are facing.
And a lot more attention is being brought to this part of the state than ever before. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate, you know, your role in that. Senator Cronin as well has been very helpful in that. And you know, I think for a long time, you know, the state hasn't understood the importance of kind of North Central Mass. I think that's changing, but this is an incredible part of the state, and you know, there's so much here. We began by talking about the farm tour. There are farms here. There's industry here. You know, great people here, and you know, I've learned a lot from the people here.
Yeah, while we still have a little bit of time, I want to thank you for your priority around looking at housing solutions in North Central Mass too, because Leominster and Fitchburg used to be a really affordable place to live, and I'm really grateful to have grown up here. But we're finding more and more folks are finding how great this community is and are moving out, and we're having a harder time helping, especially those elders who have lived here their whole life. Maybe we're lifelong renters. be able to afford to continue to call Leominster their home. And you came out and looked at a new project that we started during the pandemic that I never thought would grow to the level that it is. We started with a 26-bed adult shelter site because Leominster had historically never had a shelter for adults experiencing homelessness in our community. And from 26 beds, it grew to 40 beds, it grew to 52 beds, to 78 beds. And I don't know that a lot of folks know that this has been kind of growing over the last few years. And there's such deep need. At the end of the winter, there were over 200 people on the wait list for those 78 beds. And we're heading into another winter, and I'm worried about how do we make sure that there's enough safe and affordable housing for everyone who wants to call Leominster their home.
Yeah. Well, one is we need to build more safe and affordable housing in general. And the housing crisis is not just limited to Leominster, it's everywhere. And the people who are being adversely impacted, again, are people who have worked their entire lives and who, many of them now are, in their later years, all of a sudden they can't make ends meet, they can't afford the rent. The kids may not live here, or they may not have any kids. So the question is, where do they go? And so, that emergency, shelter program has been vital, has been life-saving for people.
It's been a really good safety valve, but
it can't be the permanent solution, right? And so, at the federal level, we have to start putting our money where our mouth is in terms of providing the state more and more federal resources to be able to build affordable housing. And we have to work, with our local officials to make sure we can site some of this housing. And we have to help make people understand affordable housing, is housing, quite frankly, that people who work in City Hall would probably be eligible for. People who work, in our community, again, who want to stay in our community, who love our community, who don't want to leave. I mean, they need access to affordable housing. We're having the same problem in Worcester, where I'm from, and it's, we can't build housing fast enough. But again, I guess, as we try to figure out how we move forward, there are solutions to this, right? There are solutions to this. We just got to focus on implementing those solutions, and we have to make sure that when we talk about funding things, that housing is up there as a top priority. I mean, I began by saying that food ought to be viewed as a fundamental human right for people. So should housing. Nobody in this country should be unhoused. And again, I'm grateful to local leaders here for not turning a blind eye to this challenge and trying to do what's right. And again, I think you're saving lives.
It's been really incredible to see the North Central region come together around this need that is just growing really rapidly. Because when Leominster took on some of this work, Clinton took on some of this work and said, hey, we actually need a shelter for our population. There's a lot of really great work happening in the Quabbin area, trying to figure out and build out systems. And so it's really been kind of the opposite of NIMBYism, but like, wait, we need to make sure that every single one of our community members has a safe place to land.
Well, and I think it's due in large part to community leaders like you and others here who are presenting this issue in the proper way. Not by, oh, we don't want this here. Oh, no, this is not our problem, or pointing a finger. It's like, no, we have a problem here. We all have to be part of the solution. So this is not about politics. It's about helping people. And that's what public service is supposed to be about, helping people. And, and I think, as you explain what the reality is, I think, people in this community are good, decent, honorable people. Their heart breaks when they hear the stories of senior citizens who don't have a place to stay, who have lived here all their life but can no longer afford their rent. I think people are genuinely good inside, and they, when presented with a solution that makes sense, and when we talk to people in a way that is not supercharged with all kinds of rhetoric, people want to be part of the solution too. So I'm proud of what's been going on in this community, and I think. I'm proud to represent it, but I'm proud to work alongside of leaders like you and others who get it. And again, I think a lot of what's happening here could be a model for the rest of the state.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for taking some time
My
out
pleasure.
of an incredibly busy day
it's great to be here.
sit down with us. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone.